Hey, 5th to 12th graders! Want to learn more about cybersecurity, participate in fun challenges, and have fun while doing it? Join us at Cyber Saturday on May 2nd at the Technology Advancement Center. Hosted by the National Cryptologic Foundation and TAC, this exciting event features guest speakers, hands-on activities like Capture the Flag with Virginia Tech's U.S. Cyber Range, Escape Room in a Box, Rubik's Cube encryption, free lunch, my favorite, swag, and more. High school students can also apply for the exclusive Cyber Elite track with our favorite BSI Lab. If you're interested, registration is open now. Join us at Cyber Saturday where you can learn cyber, build skills, and level up your future. See you there. Welcome to Cyber Chats, a podcast made by the National Cryptologic Foundation. I'm your host, Kennedy Taylor, and together we'll be demystifying the world of cybersecurity by talking with amazing cyber enthusiasts like you, as well as industry professionals. Be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Welcome back to Cyber Chats. Today, I'm so excited to have Laura Nelson, our outgoing president and CEO of NCF. Laura, how are you doing?
I am doing great. Very excited to be looking forward to the next chapter.
I know, I'm excited to hear more about the next chapter coming up, if you don't mind sharing. But for now, just to set the stage, everyone listening, you may have listened to Laura on a previous podcast episode she was on, and it was incredible. But we're excited to have her now for what I would think of as a reflective episode. Laura has had a huge impact on the world of cyber and intel, and especially on NCF. And today I'm excited to learn more about that impact. Now, before we start, how are you feeling as you start to close this chapter at NCF?
Well, I think, it's interesting. It's kind of I'm happy and a little sad, I have to say, because it's sentimental, right? This is something that I feel that I've built over the last 7 years, really transformed the organization into something that it really wasn't before. And so, as you step away, kind of, I'm happy, but I'm also thinking, oh gosh, I'm walking away from all of this. And yeah, mixed feelings. How's that?
I'm sure. All right, I want to dive back into your background as well, because, those listening are so inspired by you. And I saw you have a background in electrical engineering. So
Yes.
what originally drew you to electrical engineering and ultimately into, Intel and cyber?
So, I have an engineering degree, and I think I was convinced to become an engineer by my physics teacher in high school. And, we had all these ideas of things we were going to be, and he said, no, Laura, you need to be an engineer. Oh, okay. And then specifically for electrical, at the time, my father's a civil engineer. And I thought, well, I'll follow in dad's footsteps and become a civil engineer. I didn't know anything. I mean, I'll be honest. I knew nothing about what I was getting into. And my father said, no, 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 no. If you're going to be an engineer, you got to go where the future is. And the future is in electrical engineering. Okay, so that's what I did. When I got to school, you had a year I went to Virginia Tech, and you had a year. The first year you just took general engineering, and you have to declare your major at the end of the first year. So that's what I did. I decided I'd just follow into that engineering field. So that's how I got there.
And then shifting into Intel, how did you get there?
Yeah, so my father worked at NSA, and which was convenient because I didn't have a car. So and it goes back further than that. I wanted a co-op job. I wanted to be a cooperative education student. So I had to find a job where I had transportation. So when it came time to apply for co-op jobs, it was like, well, I might as well apply to NSA. They had a really good co-op program. Hopefully, I think they still have a good co-op program. Hopefully it's all still intact. But I wanted to, so I decided to apply for a job there. And the reason was I had a ride to work. So that kind of started the journey. That's not a very great explanation, but that's really what it was. Because now I had, I ride to work and I could do some cool stuff, right? I was working on some really neat projects. And what was great about the co-op program is they kind of bring you in and you get assigned to a first office. But then from there, every tour, when you go back, I go back to school and then I come back for 3 or 6 months. And I got to choose which offices I would go to. So I kind of got to pick the areas so I could sample a lot of different things in the engineering field over that period of time, basically between my sophomore and junior year, and spread it into 3 years. So yeah, so that's how I kind of got the hook to stay in the field.
Just thinking, I think I saw that you were at NSA for 37 years. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a long time, isn't it?
What was the cyber and intel landscape like when you first started compared to today?
Well, cyber was not a thing. There was no internet. Well, maybe it was, and DARPA and those guys working on it in the background. But so cyber, that was not a word we knew. So, but the Intel business was thriving, right? We had the big bad Soviet Union out there, and they were the enemy of all. We were always working to, that was who we were trying to exploit their communications. China was big even then. But so it was a very much a working RF radio frequency communications of various types. And yeah, so that was kind of how I, got involved in developing engineering, processing systems and collection systems, and that was what we were pursuing. So it was an interesting time. I started when I was after my co-op time. I started in something they call it weapons in space, which was not really telecommunications. It was telemetry and building systems to process telemetry signals. So there's just still signals, but it carries information, not communications between people, but maybe communications between equipment. And so we were, working on missile systems and satellite systems. So that was the big thing back in those days. And that's something we had to, it was a really high priority to work those because we wanted to understand our adversaries' capabilities. And that was the way to do it, by looking at that. So that was what I worked on in the beginning, which some would, yeah, is that cyber? I don't know. Maybe it's a form of cyber. But it wasn't the internet. Let's put it that way.
Was there maybe a moment while you were doing that that made you realize this was the right career path, or maybe even a mentor? Just thinking 37 years is a long time. I imagine you felt pulled.
Um, yeah, it's kind of a funny story. I didn't have a mentor at the time, and what I what I did know is that what I enjoyed more than the engineering was the people. And so I worked as an engineer probably for 10 years, but in the midst of that, they asked me to kind of be a team lead to start. And so I jumped into that and figured out that my my skills were probably better used in leading teams and organizations than really being working as an engineer. And there were engineers who were far better engineers than me, but I was better at leading teams and running organizations. So yeah, that's kind of how I evolved from being working on systems and putting things out in the field and doing all that to into the leadership, started down the leadership track.
And I see that you received the Meritorious Presidential Rank Award.
Oh yeah, that was much later in my career. So, yeah, that was much later, and that's something that's yeah, a lot as a senior executive. Once you become a senior executive, that's really an honor to receive that. And was it 2013? I think it was 2013. I got it. I should know this. I believe it was 2013 that I received that award. But that is really, they kind of look at your body of work over your whole career, but basically from my work as a senior executive, and that was how I was able to be honored with that.
Got it. Well, yeah, congratulations. 13 years later, it's still incredible.
Yeah.
Just thinking about that leadership track that you were on, because I saw that you also served in the Defense Intelligence Senior Executive Service. What leadership lessons, I don't know how much you can share about your time at NSA and working with these orgs, but what leadership lessons did you learn that you think stand out most when you think about that time?
Gosh.
And I can tell you why I'm asking, right? A lot of our listeners, some of them, of course, are are younger, they're in school, but some are early professionals that are trying to branch out into the leadership world as well. And that shift can be hard for most people, but you clearly did it with ease, it looks like.
Yeah. Okay. So I think one of the important ones that you have to remember when you think of yourself as a leader, you have the people that work for you, right? You have the people that you work for, right? And sometimes people either work well up or they work well down, right? But the most important relationships as a leader are your peers. So if you want to get things done, and you have to work with other organizations to get that done. It's never just your own. You're never doing it on your own. You're doing it with other organizations. The most important relationships to cultivate are those with your peer organizations. That was my perspective. Of course, you want to take care of the people who work for you, right? And of course, you want to do the things that make the bosses happy. But to really be effective, you need to work across, with other organizations who are helping you to achieve your goals. I think that is probably that was one of the most important. The other thing that I think I learned is sometimes bad stuff happens. Things go wrong, and it's not always under your control. Even though as a leader, you should have control of what goes on in your organization, it doesn't always work that way.
I
And
wish.
and I think that what you have to learn is to be accountable. And so when something happens, it's on your watch, right? And so, I mean, I had that happen to me, right? I had something go really bad. And there was, it obviously there were some things that went wrong inside and somebody pushed the wrong button, whatever, that doesn't matter. What matters is how you respond to it, right? And being accountable and saying, yeah, this was on my watch. There's things we have to fix. And it's inside our organization, and some of it was outside the organization, but helping point out what those other things might be. But to be accountable and say it was, my responsibility. And I think that really, it's about your integrity, right? And you don't want to go blame others when things go wrong. You have to be accountable. So those are probably the two biggest things that I learned. And sometimes, that one was a hard lesson to learn, but I mean, it came easily to me, but it was a difficult and challenging time, and it took months for us to recover, right? And there were fractures within the team and things, and people didn't agree with the approach we were taking to resolve some of the issues, but in the end, I think I was successful because I was able to be accountable and take responsibility for fixing it.
That's a good reminder.
Yeah.
And when I talk to industry professionals, I feel like most people have had that moment when they were like, oh no, I just shut operations down for a day, or I did something.
Oh yeah, it was bad. Things get bad. So.
Well, on a positive note, was there a moment in your career at NSA where you really felt the impact of your work? Obviously, the work that you're doing or did is incredible and affecting our
Yeah.
nation.
Um, yeah, I mean, I've had multiple, I'd say, but that was a period when I was running one of a collection organization at NSA. It was a big collection organization. We had big budget. We did high risk, high gain, there was a high reward for the work we did. And when we were successful, boy, were we successful, right? And I think during that time, I was really, I think we expanded the program and really set it on a course that was so important for a number of years to processing intelligence. And I felt that was, I was done under my watch, and I had to kind of transform the organization to get them prepared to do it. And so, yeah, I felt the impact. And I was proud when I saw the numbers of things that were coming out as a direct result of our work. It was, yeah, I was proud. I was very proud of that time.
Very cool. We all need a moment like that.
Yes.
All right. Now, fast forward 37 years after retiring from NSA. What inspired you to start this journey with NCF?
Inspired me to. So I got to be honest. I'd never heard of of the National Cryptologic Foundation. Or at that time, it was the National Cryptologic Museum Foundation. I'd never heard of it. It was probably the biggest secret inside of NSA. There's a lot of secrets inside of NSA, but nobody knew about this organization. And so I was approached by a former deputy director, Chris Inglis, who's on our board now, and I'd run into him at a concert. And so he asked me what I was doing, and I told him I was doing some work back at NSA as a annuitant, right? But he said, well, what else are you doing? So clearly he was not satisfied with my response. And so he reached out to me a few days later and said, I have an opportunity for you. And I said, okay, what's this opportunity? I've never heard of the organization. And at the time it was to kind of take an organization that had two very distinct and there was an organization that was the old National Cryptologic Museum Foundation that would do quarterly programs on history events. And then at the same time, there was this whole other part that was building, was a campaign to build a new museum. And he said, we kind of want you to bring all that together and build this new Cyber Center for Education and Innovation. Obviously, that part didn't happen for a variety of reasons. But along that journey, it took many twists and turns to determine what is the future mission of this organization, right? I knew it was going to be more than just doing quarterly programs. We had a much bigger, opportunity to do more, but then figured out, well, the Cyber Center for Education and Innovation was going to have an education program. What is that? And there were some seeds of that started when I got there. So not understanding it was going to be K-12, working, trying to get kids interested in careers in this and teaching them how to be cyber safe. But at the same time, there was this other part of the mission that was undefined. And when I'd ask, you said, you talk about there's supposed to be this innovation piece. What is it? Nobody knew. So I said, oh, I got to make it up. Okay. So with the help of some board members, we kind of created this whole idea of the partnership with NSA specifically on these Convening to Act series and really serving as that public platform for engagement with NSA as a partner, but then bringing industry, academia, other government agencies, into the fold to do that. So it was a journey, many twists and turns, and it's sometimes been challenging, but now I think we're in a good place, right? And we move forward. And it doesn't, some of these now we don't even doesn't even require NSA to engage in it because we have, topics of interest, and we can bring industry and other government partners together and have really, really great events to talk about topics of national security interest, such as quantum resistant computing or artificial intelligence in our national security systems, or we have one on computer network operations. So yeah, it's been a long journey. I look back at wow, very different organization than what I started with.
And for those listening, our Convening to Act events are on our website if you're interested. They really are incredible. And as you know, we have multiple events throughout the year, such as Cyber Saturday. We have an education summit. If you are interested in, of course, anything, and for various age groups, please check out our website. Just a little plug there.
Yes.
What initiatives or programs hold a special place in your heart here at NCF?
I kind of mentioned both of them. But I have to say the education program just has I just love the fact that we engage with kids. We get them interested. It's a lot of fun to go to a Cyber Saturday event where the kids are really seeing kids in action and, working on problems or being, shown what the possibilities are. That just, that is, yeah, it's very heartwarming to see, and I, know the future is good, right? And that there is a next generation. But then again, we just had this Convening to Act program last week on quantum resistant cryptography, and it's a very dry topic, so very niche crowd that we have. And but I was just blown away by the number of people that were there. And it was something where, a week before, we didn't have as many people signed up as I hoped. And then next thing I know, we had 180 people signed up. And I thought, wow, what happened here? And it was just such great dialogue, and just see that. I love to see government and industry talking together, working together to solve the problems, and really address what needs to happen. It's fun to see a little sparring take place sometimes, all collegial. It's always entertaining to see that happen. But it was. I think it's something that I'm really proud of. For
Very cool.
setting the stage for the future, and that partnership with NSA is really strong.
Yeah, and I'd argue that a lot of these, problems require collaborative effort. Quantum, even thinking about S-bombs or software bill of materials when they first came out,
Yeah.
no one knew what to do. And, being able to come together and talk about it definitely made huge movement in the area.
Yes. Yeah. And so,
You helped build that.
it is, yeah, and all good, and some of the topics, like on this particular topic, we had NIST as a partner as well, the National Institute,
Cool.
right? So that really was a part of this as well. So like we do bring in other government partners into the equation. So.
All right. Well, we know NCF has grown significantly since you've joined. What achievements are you most proud of?
Aside from building the program, so I'd say I'm proud that our name is now not completely unknown. I think the fact that we go and we're sought after, right? And just in the education program, they know that they want us at the table. Alicia has done just a fabulous job with the program, and they want us there. And I'm thinking, we're not just that name hidden, that organization that nobody knows about anymore. They seek us out to do some of these things. And to me, I'm just really proud to do that. And I think, it's just been fun to kind of continue my cryptologic career after leaving NSA, and really helping to with NSA has always had a public image. What is it? What do they do? And working with them to get them out into the public has just been a great success. And I'm really proud of the fact that they're such willing partners, and that we can talk about these really important topics.
Do you think your experience at NSA helped shape your leadership approach at NCF?
Oh, definitely. Yes. Because it's NSA is a great place to work. It's a little quirky though, let's be honest, right? And there's the persona about it and a culture. And I think understanding that culture was really critical to doing this next step, to being able to engage with them, because you have to know who the people are, and even within NSA, there's different cultures of organizations, and that trust is really important. And somebody, that they know, oh yeah, she's one of us, is really helpful. So, yes.
Yeah, I imagine you had to navigate as well the change of administrations and, things.
That was challenging. And I'd say the last year has been tough. NSA has, finally has a director in place, and a confirmed director, but without a confirmed director since last April, it put NSA in a challenging place, because their public engagement was drawn back. I mean, they weren't able to engage as they have in the past, in our previous events. So that that's required some figuring out, for instance, can we do the AI event? We did it in the fall without NSA, and it proved that we can, right? We proved that we can do that, but never being sure right now whether we can or can't. Now, on this last one, quantum resistant cryptography, yeah, they were there with us to do that, which that would have been really hard to do without NSA. But anyway, but yeah, so you kind of have to work through the administrations, and they're all different, and they all have different rules, right? So.
And you're definitely the nature of working with government agencies. I mean, funding is different, priorities are different. It happens.
Right.
As you think about NCF, with our new CEO and changes that are coming, Is there any, advice you would give to the new CEO or even just a vision that you have for NCF in the future?
What advice would I give? So we are in challenging and interesting times, and as private citizens, we all need to understand the threats and opportunities that advances in technology, such as AI and quantum, bring to the table, and understand how to protect ourselves, our families, our communities from threats. We do rely on the government, federal, state, and local, to provide a lot of that information. But bringing together all of these individuals from government, industry, academic institutions, and the general public is really critical to ensuring our future. At this time, participation from the federal government isn't guaranteed. However, we still need to continue to hold these sessions because they're so critical to our future. My advice is to be patient and remain vigilant to ensure that we live in a cyber resilient nation. Our partnerships are vital to our success. We have an established partnership with NSA, but there are also key partnerships with state and local governments and organizations, corporations, academic institutions that are critical to our success. We need to expand our reach across multiple sectors beyond what is considered the traditional national security sector. And finally, today's students are tomorrow's leaders, and we need to ensure that we continue to support our education program and expand our reach to classrooms across the nation. We need to inspire students to pursue careers in cyber-related fields. And for me, this has been the most rewarding part of leading the NCF. So what's next for me? I need a new boat, a 42-foot trawler. We plan to explore the Chesapeake and beyond. I'm most excited about heading up north through New York and eventually making it to Maine. We'll head south a bit too. My parents are in their 90s, and I need to spend more time with them as their ability to get out and about has become much more challenging, and they need more of my time and attention. And then finally, I will become a first-time grandmother in August. And as many of my friends have told me, this is all about the grandkids, and this is the best part. I do want to remain engaged with the cryptologic community, whether it is through volunteering for events or taking on short-term projects. This has been part of my life for 45 years, and I want to continue to contribute.
Well, one last question as we start to send you off. No, I'm going to cry. But where do you see the future of cyber and intelligence headed over the next decade?
Oh, wow, complicated, right? I think we're just beginning to see the power of AI. At the same time, the power of it as well as in intelligence, right? There's a lot of opportunity to use AI to our benefit, but also the challenges of AI that it presents to us, right? And I think from an intelligence point of view, I mean, I was raised in NSA about always safeguarding, the Fourth Amendment rights of the people of the United States. And I think that is where putting those guardrails in place is so important, and how we go about doing that in our as we pursue our future intelligence targets, that we have to think about protecting those who could get swept up, innocents who are not participating in this, but because we put out, some kind of a surveillance network that includes people who are in the U.S. And I think it's a challenge. We kind of knew what the rules of engagement were before, but I think that just really kind of changes the game a bit. And it's a concern, but an opportunity as well. So that is, I think, something that will hopefully come to some ideas of how to solve that problem.
I'm sure it'll be a topic at many convenings over the next 10 years.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Laura, one, for your time, but also for your service to NCF. We're so excited for you, and I hope you stay in touch in your next chapter.
Well, thank you so much. Very excited. And I hope this podcast keeps going and reaching all these, youth and others.
Thank you. Me too.
Thank you, Kennedy.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope this conversation sparked your curiosity and got you excited about the world of cybersecurity. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with fellow cyber enthusiasts. Have a question or a topic you'd love us to explore? Connect with us on CyberChat's podcast page and join the conversation. Until next time, stay curious and keep the cyber chats going.